The first question is from Singapore. Celeste, I'm sorry if I call your name wrong. Good day, Ajahn. Thank you for your time. My new house has a lot of mosquitoes, sandflies, moths, flying termites, and a lot of bugs, and recently a rat visited, which has greatly been causing nuisance. The sight of them has scared and disgusted me, and I am also the one who got bitten really badly in the house, whereas other family members seem to be fine. I wonder, by setting up all the moth traps, mozzie traps, rat traps, is it considered as breaking the precept of not intentionally killing living beings? If not, is there any suggestion of how to deal with so many bugs and still not cause harm to lives? They have always caused me to startle and scream. I have always wanted to stay near nature and chose to stay in level 1 in this housing project with lots of plantation, but did not expect such an issue. I am grateful for having this house, but have been in a dilemma if I should keep the traps or remove it.
Firstly, Anumodana in that you have a beautiful house amongst the plantation or forest. And so you're from Singapore, so the government should be controlling the mosquitoes in the general public, and so you shouldn't have too much of a problem with it. But because you said you do, it must mean that maybe you're in an area that the government has overlooked and hasn't done anything about. But you can find skillful methods in order to catch these mosquitoes and release them. In terms of the flying termites, those you do have to catch, because if they drop their wings and these termites will end up damaging your house, will damaging the wood in the house. For the rats, you can do it and catch them in the way that you don't kill them, and later you can release them elsewhere. In the monastery, there's also problems like this, and so they do cause a bit of a nuisance, but we ourselves think that they're coming to bother us, but the insects and animals themselves, they think that they are just trying to search for food and just trying to live and survive. They're not thinking they want to bother us. But we do have to try to live in a way that we can reduce this problem or nuisance by using our wisdom. And so we can set out traps that later we can release them. So in the monastery, they have a big monitor lizard. That's right, monitor lizard, and it would eat up the fish in the ponds in the monastery. And so lay people would come and release some fish in this pond, and the monitor lizard would end up eating the fish. And so Venerable Ajahn Anan thought to himself that the people are coming to release the fish there in the monastery because they think they will be safe from harm, and the fish themselves may be thinking that why can't they protect us and help us. And so we did end up catching these monitor lizards because they'd come and eat the fish and release them elsewhere. And so the home as well, you have to keep reasonably clean and free from diseases. In terms of Sīla, the precepts, the first precept of intentionally killing living beings, this is you are intentionally reducing their lifespan. But if you catch them and release them elsewhere, then that isn't considered harming them or breaking the precept, and so you can do that. But you have to be careful as well not to kill them. You shouldn't be using traps that maybe use glue or something sticky that the rat may end up being stuck there and being unable to be released. So there's also the traps for pigeons as well that some people use the glue and they aren't able to be released. And so those you shouldn't do, and they are dangerous to the animal. So find a trap that is the insect or animal can be released later. So as for the termites, they can eat and destroy the wood. So what do you do? They destroy the wood in the house. Whether you can catch and release them all may be difficult. They may eat the wood and the posts or foundations of the house. Probably in Singapore you don't have wood posts like that, but in Thailand they do. So the monks' kutis, the huts, must be protected, otherwise the termites will come and eat the wood there, and then it will be a big problem. So firstly, to try to protect against that, not let that happen, whether it's using some sprays so that termites won't come and live there in that dwelling. But if they live there already, then what to do? You need to find a ways to get them to move out or move from there, and not having that intention to kill them. The intention is what is this sīla, this quality of sīla, moral conduct. So if a monk is taking medicines, maybe for worms, maybe inside their intestines or stomach, then they don't have the thought that they want to kill those worms, but they have the thought that they're taking the medicine so that they can maintain their health, they can be free from sickness. And so there is also the sīla, the moral conduct of a Sotapanna, a stream enterer. So there's a story in the time of the Buddha where there was a wife of one hunter, and this wife came from a very rich family. They said she lived in a mansion, a very high status family, but there was a hunter who was trading in the market, and she saw the hunter and fell in love. And Venerable Ajahn Anan said that reading this story maybe questioned whether it really happened like that. Someone from a very rich, wealthy family falling in love with a hunter like that whose occupation or work was to kill. And so the woman saw this hunter, fell in love, and didn't ask the parents whether they would accept him because she knew that they wouldn't. And so eloped with this hunter, took her things, belongings, and left. And they later also had children, possibly it was 3 children if remembered correctly. But later on, this wife, she listened to Dhamma, was interested in it, and practiced Dhamma and attained to Sotapanna, stream entry. But this husband had the occupation, the work to kill living beings, and that's how he supported his family. And so would have arrows or spears and bait that he would take into the forest. And it was the wife's duty that she had to organize and prepare these weapons and the food, the bait used to catch the animals. But she was a Sotapanna. And the Buddha said that she was a Sotapanna, and so there was a bit of a conflict or discussion amongst the others whether this was possible or not, and that she could actually just support the killing of living beings by preparing the weapons and the bait, but not actually, and still be a Sotapanna. So the Buddha asked this lady, the wife, that what were your intention and thought when you were doing this, when you're preparing these weapons and bait? And the wife said it was just her duty to do so. The husband has the occupation to look after the family, to support the family, and even though it was through killing, but she herself had no intention that she wanted those living beings to die at all. But it was something that she had to do as her duty. And so this cetana, this intention, is this quality of sila. So one has to establish one's own mind well in sila, and sometimes one is unable to avoid the killing of living beings. Just like if someone's driving a car and then maybe on a rainy day or going to different places, there's small insects that are going to collide with the windscreen, with the car, and die from that. And they don't have an intention to kill those living beings. They're just driving because they need to get to certain places and for their livelihood. So for someone to say then, oh, they don't want to drive at all so that no insects will die then, and that is true, but then they won't be able to maintain their livelihood and live in a way that is at ease or conducive. And so it is also the karma of living beings that they have to receive the karma of or the results of their actions, but one doesn't have any intention at all to kill. And so one should establish one's intentions correctly. Don't do so in a way that don't think in a way that it lets the mind drop, be lowered. And so in the beginning, it might be hard to understand, but later on, one gains more understanding, then one's mind can be firmly established and have the quality of equanimity and doesn't have the intention at all to kill living beings. And also, to continue on with that story of the hunter and the wife, the Buddha saw that the hunter and the child had potential, and so they had entered the net of the Buddha's compassion, and so the Buddha saw that they were able to attain to Sotapanna, and the Buddha went to go instruct them or teach them, and the hunter, the husband, was in the forest and had caught an animal in a trap, and the Buddha released that animal and took its place. And so when the husband saw, the hunter saw that this samana, this renunciant or the monk, had let his catch or his prey go, then he took his arrow in order to shoot the Buddha. But with the power of the Buddha's abilities, psychic abilities, that he was stuck in his place and he couldn't release the arrow and was stuck like that. And then at home, the wife had seen that the hunter had not come back, and so sent her child to go look at what had happened. And the child had seen that the dad was about to shoot the monk, the Buddha, and so went back to tell the mother, and then the mother quickly came and saw the husband stuck in this stance about to shoot the arrow to the Buddha, and she knew straight away that was the Buddha, and so she cried out that, "Don't shoot my father." And the husband and the child had never seen her father before, and so were very surprised at this, that this was her father. And the mind of the hunter was more relaxed and had let go of the intention to harm. And so then the Buddha taught the hunter and the child, and the hunter attained to Sotapanna, and if I remember correctly, the child as well attained to Sotapanna. And with that attainment, the hunter stopped any killing living beings. He stopped his livelihood of killing, being a hunter, because he had seen the drawbacks in that occupation and in killing. So this hunter did have the virtues, the noble potential, but because of his karmic results, he had taken up that occupation of being a hunter. But when he saw the drawbacks, the dangers of that, then he let go of that intention to kill and gave up that occupation. So in conclusion, then this cetana, this intention, is sila. And so we should think of it in just the right, appropriate amount. Don't think too much about it. Otherwise, it will be a cause for suffering to arise.
The next question is from Malaysia, from Miss Sasim. Dear Ajahn, during my meditation practice, I experienced calmness and stillness without any thoughts. Should I continue in this state? Thank you, Ajahn. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So this training of the mind, we're seeing the drawbacks of thought or thinking of the mind that proliferates, the drawbacks of ignorance, craving, and attachment. When we meet and experience a sense object that we like, that pleases us, that is pleasurable, then the mind will proliferate. There will be kama tanha, sensual craving, will be pleased in that object, bhava tanha, that we want to get that object more. Or if there's disliking arising, there's vibhava tanha, where we don't want that object. So we constantly are meeting with these three types of craving of tanha. And from ignorance, then that conditions karmic formations. It leads to sense contact. There's feelings arising from that contact, whether it's pleasurable or painful, or neither pleasurable or painful. These feelings arise, and that causes craving to arise, and then attachment, and becomes the cause for suffering to arise. And so the mind that doesn't have peacefulness, that doesn't have calm, this mind will follow these sense objects or the aramana. And so we're coming here to train the mind to develop peace. We're coming on this retreat in order to develop this, to train our minds. So we want to lessen or to have our thoughts reduce and reduce. And in its place will come up a feeling of coolness, peace. This coolness, we can say, is also rapture arising. So there's this rapture arising, and then a feeling of inner fullness of heart or bliss. We may feel very cool inside our heart, and a feeling of peace. The body and mind feel very light. And so this we can use to contemplate then into rupa and nama, material and mental phenomena, and see it clearly. But if one has a lot of peace, then they may be deluded to think that this is the paths and fruits of nibbana. So that then can be a type of defilement, a very refined defilement, and it can obstruct our practice or our path of Dhamma. But this peace is the type that it's maybe many months on end lasting, or maybe for a whole year we have this peace. But if one has wisdom, then they'll know that this is in regards to samadhi. And they will then use the samadhi in order to see rupa and nama clearly, have wisdom arise. Just like Venerable Kodanya, he had a very firm samadhi, but he saw that that was not the path in order to free oneself from all suffering. And so when he heard then the teaching from the Buddha, he contemplated and saw into Rupa and Nama as being not self. And he knew then that was the path. And so he was the first noble disciple then of the Buddha. So we should keep practicing this path regularly, and this will lead us to see the truth. So samadhi, the development of samadhi, it leads to the good result of having wisdom arise. And the wisdom that is developed well will lead to insight or knowledge, lead to vimutti, liberation and freedom from suffering. And so this samadhi that arises comes from this solid or good base of sila that's been developed well. So Venerable Ajahn Anan gives his anumodana to you and all the others, the many that also have experienced this type of calmness and stillness. And we can see that there's much less questions in this retreat or on this today. It shows that people's understanding has grown a lot, and this is the good result coming from Dhamma practice, that one's gained more understanding in the Dhamma. So may you keep continuing on your practice in this path. And so when you can develop that peacefulness and calm, then this will be used to learn about the truth, seeing into and understanding Rupa and Nama as being something that arises, stays, and then ceases. And this, then one will see the Dhamma.